There may be some slight spoilers here, but I will try not to go that far. Hey, I'm Amy and welcome or welcome back. Joker is here and oh my god, this movie is so intense. Quick, off the bat, spoiler-free review. I loved it. Amazing. It is wonderful. There are a couple qualms I have with it that I may have to get into some spoiler territory to talk about later on, but initially I'll try to talk about all of the non-spoilery things that I can first, and then talk about all these spoiler things later, and I will let you know when that happens. Like I said, really love this movie. It is intense and it is just very tough to watch, but it is very real. It feels very real. It doesn't really feel like a villain to a superhero movie origin story, even though that's kind of what it is. It is like not one of the greatest superhero-esque movies that you could say is ever made, but it is a very cinematic film that just so happens to be a story about a villain to a superhero. And you can probably get this from the trailers, a very deep, dark, hard look at what it is like to be a person with a mental illness in society today, how society treats people with mental illness. This is set kind of around the 1970s. It is paying homage almost throughout the entire thing to two of Martin Scorsese's greatest films of all time. One of them is a very underrated film, The King of Comedy. If you did not see, I did a video yesterday on that. You can check it out up there, talking about why I think The King of Comedy is actually a horror movie. The other Scorsese film that this really pays homage to and takes a lot from is Taxi Driver, which is one of my favorite actually it is my favorite Martin Scorsese movie. I have a humongous book of it right here. I absolutely love Taxi Driver. And I really love how Joker became a marriage of the two main characters, two of, I think, Robert De Niro's greatest Martin Scorsese characters, Rupert Pupkin from King of Comedy and Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver. It's not just his character either. It's not just Joaquin Phoenix's Joker character, which, by the way, Joaquin Phoenix is insane and amazing and transformative in this. He is a completely different person, and you watch him as he transforms throughout the entire film, from Arthur Fleck to Joker, and it's just this beautiful, intense, insane transformation. But the story is also a combination of both the King of Comedy and Taxi Driver, which is kind of a spoiler to talk about, so I won't really go into a lot of that here. There's like just so much about this movie that is amazing. It feels like the first couple scenes that you are watching a gigantic, very, very hard, like leave you red palm print there, slap in the face of what it is like to live with a mental illness, what it is like to live with a mental illness in society today, being kind of looked down upon and pushed aside. There is a point, at some point around the midpoint of the film, in the second act, when everything really starts to pick up and get going, when Arthur is talking to his social worker and she says that they're not going to be seeing each other anymore and he's not going to be able to get his medication. That's a big turning point for him, and she says that the government, the people higher up, just don't really care about him. They don't care about anybody. At points, even though I necessarily haven't really been in that particular situation, that is a thing that happens, and mental illness in general is kind of looked down upon, kind of brushed aside as something that we don't really want to talk about, even though it's something very important to talk about. But there is a lot of the way Arthur acts, and the camera and the story really shows this. It shows everything through Arthur's perspective, so you feel his highs and his lows of his depression and all of his other mental illnesses. He has this condition, I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's this condition in his brain that makes him laugh at at random circumstances. He can't really control it, so he has to give people cards to kind of explain why he's just randomly laughing at an inappropriate moment. Things like that. You feel his almost uncomfortableness, or you are kind of uncomfortable as a third-party viewer of what is happening at the situation. There are a lot of moments where you feel Arthur's psychosis, you feel what he is feeling, and it's kind of like anxiety inducing. I know a friend of mine, she went to go see this and she had to leave because she felt like she was going to have a panic attack while watching this, so keep that in mind when going in to see this. I personally was fine, but it is a very intense movie. But I did notice as I was driving home, like leaving the movie theater, backing my car out of the parking lot, I felt this big knot in my chest that I normally feel when I'm in the middle or about to have a panic attack, and I hadn't realized it, but I had been carrying that inside my chest the entire 2 hours of the film. So bear that in mind if you easily get panic attacks or if you don't do well with kind of stressful situations like that. It may not be a great film to go into. The film also does leave you with a lot of questions. I highly suggest watching Film Theory's video breaking down the Joker movie. I think I'll just leave it up there. It is really great. It really goes into a lot of Arthur's psychosis. It is very spoiler filled and breaks down a lot of some spoilery stuff that I don't necessarily want to get into right now because I will talk about it a little bit in the spoiler section. It would also make this video way too long. There's also one little quote that has to do with mental illness that I really latched onto. It is a quote from Arthur's journal where he writes, and I'm paraphrasing here, "The hardest thing about living with a mental illness is people expect you to act like or behave like you don't have one." And that kind of really hit me because, again, it's not something that we really talk about. Anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, these are all different things that Arthur, I feel from my personal experiences, has. Not necessarily the schizophrenia part, but the depression and the anxiety are definitely very big focuses in my life and in Arthur's life. Having to go through that with him in this is a really, I think, eye-opening experience for a lot of people who don't necessarily deal with those kinds of emotions on a daily basis. But seeing that quote and feeling those feelings through another person's eyes, the way I also feel them, I really clung on and held on to that, and it really spoke to me, and it was really powerful. And now I think I may get into a little bit of the spoilery stuff. So beware if you have not watched this yet. Do not watch past this. I'll try to remember to leave a time code right here that gets, once I finish with the spoilers and get to my score. But spoiler time. One of the things about this movie that I spent the majority of the film watching for was the break between what is Arthur's reality and what is in his head. It was very hard for me to figure that out. I spent way too much time figuring out. I think I did find the tell because I know this was very heavily inspired by the King of Comedy, and that is a big thing in the King of Comedy. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure that out, and the tell that I think it was is the switch between Arthur's nervousness to his very charismatic and confident self, which is what he wants to be. It's who he wants to be. And it's also his laugh. When he's nervous or crying or scared, he starts laughing uncontrollably because of his condition. And I think that is his tell. When he is in moments where he's very nervous and weak, he starts doing this laugh. But then there are other moments where he's very confident and you can tell that that's not him. It's a different person. And because of this, and because I had that mindset, there was a moment in the end of the film when he goes to Zazie Beetz' apartment. She lives down the hall from him, the girl he thinks he has been seeing through the entire film. She doesn't recognize him as more than just the person down the hall. You get flashbacks of all of their times together. To me, it felt like it really broke the illusion because I knew that there was this break between what is real and what is fake, and it was hidden and blended so smoothly together that I liked the ambiguity. That was a really weird way to pronounce ambiguity. I really enjoyed the ambiguity, and I really liked the soft, the very feathered line between the way it transitioned between what is real and what is in Arthur's head. And having these flashbacks really was hard for me to forgive, and it's one of the reasons why I gave it like a 4.5 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. But I did talk to a friend today who has not seen either Taxi Driver or King of Comedy and said that he actually really enjoyed having those bits in there because he didn't know, he hadn't gone into this with that mindset. So I understand why they put them in there. It wasn't really something that it did not work well for me. But a lot of this movie was fantastic and amazing, and I absolutely adored everything about it. So with that small spoiler spot being said, my score for this, my rewatch score for this, obviously it's going to be a collection. Like, I want to go and watch this movie again without trying to pick apart where the split between reality versus imagination is, and just enjoy it more for what it is. More for the film, more for the artistry. There is so much about this film that I didn't even get to that are in my notes, so if you do want to see more extended notes and things like that, they will be up on my Patreon tomorrow, the exact same time that this video has been posted, but tomorrow. If you want to see more of my thoughts on things like this, let me know your thoughts on Joker in the comments down below. Did you feel the same way that my one friend felt, where she had to leave because she was so anxious, or did you really enjoy it? Let me know in the comments down below. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really truly do appreciate you, whoever you are. Let me know here in the comments down below, and let's be friends. If you enjoyed this, leave a like and subscribe if you're new, because I love talking comics, movies, TV shows, filmmaking, chemistry, all that fun stuff, and I'll see you next time. Bye!